We've got Leah Long. She is the Mississippi and Louisiana Director for the National Federation of Independent Small Business. Leah, always good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, we have seen the tariff policy imposed by the president really wreak havoc on the markets, which, of course, primarily applies to publicly traded companies. I suspect that the majority of your members are not publicly traded, but this affects the overall economy, and I suspect it affects many of your members as well. What are they telling you?
Yeah, the tariff issue, it's super concerning, but actually from our members, the biggest issue that we're hearing is, the 20% small business deduction, which I know we've
Yeah.
talked about that several times on the show. And so they've kind of talked about the tariffs, but the biggest thing is that, 9 out of 10 businesses, if this is not, reinstated and made permanent, will be hit with a massive tax hike this year. So right now, that's kind of their biggest issue with Congress. And, we've been working hard to get them to permanently reinstate that. So that's kind of where they are on federal issues. Everything's a little concerning right now, but that's their biggest concern.
Yeah, I completely understand that besides the 20% pass-through deduction there, just the overall tax rates, tax treatment,
Yeah.
all the above it would, if not renewed, cause their taxes to go up. It would hit hard, especially small and mid-sized pass-through S-Corp, LLC type structured organizations. I really wish the president would have focused on that and waited until that was passed and then tackle the tariff issue. I'm with him in that, as he likes to say, we've been ripped off. I agree. And I think we need some sort of action to do away with this disparity, to eradicate the disparity between this country and other countries and our cross trading. But man, I sure do wish we could focus on those tax cuts, because I don't know if you're hearing this from your members, Lee, and I'll ask you to respond on that. Are they kind of in a wait and see posture, maybe thinking about making some investments, expansion, hiring, et cetera, but without the clarity on future tax policy, they're just have a tendency to lock up and really freeze?
Yeah, so we kind of do that. We do the small business kind of to talk about everything that happens every month. And so for us, it has fell. December was a higher month for us with optimism, but it has fell because the uncertainty of the economic future is bothering
Yeah.
these small business owners. Not only they're still dealing with inflation, but just like you're saying, tax policy. Just the cost of doing business is higher. You think about the labor shortages and labor cost issue. And so, they're a little uncertain right now. And, we were hoping that it would be more positive and, they were optimistic about investing into their businesses and expanding. But right now with the future, you just don't know. And so I think they're kind of pulling back a little bit about how positive they were to see their business grow. And that's very upsetting because we came into 2025 with really high hopes for small business owners.
In Mississippi, as you know, and the same is true in Louisiana, we have a fairly significant agricultural industry. I'm sure some of those are your members. Many of these are small businesses, right? And tariffs really do have an impact on them, mainly because they export much of their produce and their yield to other countries where these tariffs are taking effect. And the other countries are responding to Mr. Trump's tariffs, and they're raising them. So this could have an effect, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about just farmers in Mississippi. I know we're kind of big at the Capitol right now. They need a lot of relief. They were hit with property tax issues, sales tax issues. And so that's kind of been a lot of the things we've been watching this session is because there's some relief that needs, especially for these poultry farmers. I know the Poultry Association kind of puts out information all the time, but I know there's several bills that have been sent to Governor Reeves' desk. And so we're hoping he'll sign them to give the much needed relief for the farmers. Because if they are dealing with the tariffs and now they're dealing with property taxes, it's going to be hard for them to make it.
Yeah.
And we desperately need it.
Yeah. Now, so as I recall, Leah, during Mr. Trump's first term, after he imposed tariffs on China, which is a buyer of much of our agricultural export, that it did have a negative effect on their business and their revenue. And as I recall, Mr. Trump sent out significant multi-billions of dollars of subsidies to help offset those losses. Is that being discussed again? Are you hearing anything about that?
I mean, it's obviously being discussed, but for our members, it's just kind of every day, how to keep their business going. And so, we focus on what can be done right now at the state level or federal level. And so that's kind of how they are. Their biggest issue, like I said, was taxes, and especially the farmers too. I know we've heard in Mississippi tons of property tax issues. And they're also having issues finding labor. And that's a big thing. And so right now, that is their everyday, issue that they come in every morning figuring out how to do.
So you mentioned property taxes a couple of times. Leah, is that specific to Mississippi, Louisiana, both? What's going on there?
Mississippi, for the poultry farmers, I know it was a big issue. They were hit with an increase in property taxes. And so that's something they've had to deal with. And I know there's several bills, I think, in both chambers of the Mississippi legislature right now. And I know they face a March 18th deadline. So if you are a poultry farmer and you're listening, please contact your legislator to get them to support these bills to help you. But those are big issues, and sales tax issues for the equipment that they do use, and so trying to give them relief so they can continue to operate, because without the poultry farmers, I'm not quite sure where we're going to be.
Huge part of Mississippi's economy, no doubt about it. So is the problem there, Leah, the reassessment of the value of their real property assets, which has increased the property tax liability, or has there been an increase in millage in some of these counties?
I could be a little bit of both. I think some of the millages, but it was an increase in the property assessment, and I think that hasn't changed in several years from what I was understanding. Right. And all of a sudden they changed it, and these poultry farmers were not prepared for that. And thinking about the economy and inflation, how it's been the last several years, the reserve money they may have had available may not be there anymore to pay these taxes. So something for them to think about, and make it more fair for them.
Okay, what about taxes here in Mississippi? You're well aware that we've got competing legislation. The House was out of the gate early with HB 1, which would to totally eliminate the income tax over a period of time, raise the sales tax, the general sales tax, lower the grocery sales tax, also impose a new sales tax on fuel. Senate has a different take on that. They stopped short of full elimination. Do you guys have a position on this, Leah?
So right now, the devil's in the details for us. We always support lowering the personal income tax rate. Most of our members file that way, so it's more beneficial for them. But, we've kind of always historically not supported a gas tax increase. And so we're trying to watch and see where this plays out. It's kind of at a standstill. You go into the Capitol and it's kind of quiet to figure out, okay, well, when is the Senate going to come back, and when are we going to have a plan? We're about a month away from the end. So I think for us, we're continuing to watch, and we're keeping our members involved and making sure they know as things progress. But we would love to see the personal income tax rate go down. We got to stay competitive in the South. Me doing Louisiana too. We just went through that. So I know Mississippi and Louisiana compete every year to, who's the better state. So a lot of industry specific things come to both states, and I think it'll help if the personal income tax rate is lower.
Now, Louisiana just did that, did they not, Leah? Didn't they pass
did.
the legislation?
They did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. They did in November. So they lowered theirs. And so I think for Mississippi to stay competitive with Louisiana, they've got to continue to lower theirs also.
I think it's kind of good to see the neighboring states here in the Deep South sort of trading barbs on hold my beer, who can lower the income tax the most. I like to see that. That's great.
I mean, it's great. I live close to the Mississippi state line, so you always hear people moving back and forth depending on how industry's doing in each state. So I think it kind of keeps it good for the states to kind of go back and forth. But there's also another bill I kind of want to mention on the state side is House Bill 302. It's basically gives credit, a grant to students and people going to trade schools and community colleges to get industry-specific certificates. And so, we always talk about workforce development in Mississippi and making, a stronger workforce. And so that's definitely something I urge the Senate to pass. It has passed the House. And so we do need a larger skill set of workforce so that we can finish and, complete some of these labor shortage issues and make sure that we have qualified workers.
Okay. Yeah. Before we go real quick, got about 10 or 20 seconds. You guys have any position on mobile sports betting in Mississippi?
We do not.
Okay.
We don't have a position on that.
Understand. Well,
I do.
appreciate.
I do love that, though. Personally, I love
I'm
that.
with
But
you.
we
I'm
don't.
with you.
NFIB does not have a position
I
on
got
that.
you. Fair enough. Appreciate it, Leah. Leah Long, National
you.
Federation of Independent Small Business, the director for Mississippi and Louisiana. We'll talk to you again soon, Leah. Thanks a lot. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.